Hey guys, it's Daniel, and today I thought it'd be interesting to talk about class limits in both casual and competitive, because I feel like it's a very open-ended topic, in which there are many points you can look at it from. Now, I personally have my own opinions about the subject in both the casual and competitive sense, which I will get into, but I think a good place to start would be with talking about some of the pros and cons that come along with having class balance in a general sense. Now, I think the biggest advantage in general to having class limits is that the overall flow of the gameplay can be a bit more smooth. Now, this isn't always the case, and there are plenty of other factors that go into how a game plays, including player's skill, the map, the mode, and other things like that. However, generally, when you are reducing the amount of people that can play and use one class, you are creating a more even team composition across both teams, which creates more diverse and fluid combat. Competitive leagues, for an example, are a good example of how class limits can increase the overall pacing and fluidity of the game. Factors such as limiting the amount of medics, snipers, spies, heavies, and other classes prevents annoying class stacking, which, if left unchecked, can create stalemates or just slow the game down a considerable amount to almost a point where nothing really gets done. When you are allowing only so many classes to a team, it makes players consider what would be the best team composition to use given the restrictions so that the whole team doesn't just spam demo and medic. Now, one common complaint, and what I agree with to a certain extent, is that obviously, with restricting the amount of people that can play a certain class, you are in turn ruining a lot of the creative freedom and strategy that comes with the freedom to play as many of one class as you would like. In a casual setting, this can be debatably understandable because it's generally more accepted as a more free and less serious area of play, where winning or completing the objective isn't always the top priority. So in that regard, class limits can have a pretty big impact to that specific argument. Now, those are what I see commonly stated among people who have spoken on this topic. Personally, I think to a certain degree, they are definitely valid points and they make sense. I think it's pretty hard to pinpoint a general right answer to enabling or not enabling class limits, since it's pretty much down to personal preference and also what specific mode are you playing, whether you're playing competitive, casual, things like that. But I think in certain settings, it's more necessary than in other areas. In a casual sense, I believe that class limits in casual would be beneficial, but they aren't necessary to the overall gameplay experience that is TF2 casual. I've said this a million times, but TF2 casual is balls to the wall insane. That's how it's always been. Each new game I run into varies in a degree of, hey, this is a pretty normal match, to, holy shit, the enemy team has 5 demo knights charging into our spawn. Now, I've been able to get a hands-on casual 12v12 experience with class limits enabled through Uncle Dane's casual servers, which have a bunch of actually really nice balance changes, including fixed weapon spreads, no random crits, and of course, a class limit of only 3. He personally has set it to make it to where there can only be 3 of one class on each team, which, in my opinion, is a pretty good amount. It still means about 25% of the team can play Spy, which is only about half of the average Valve casual game. This is beneficial, of course, for the reasons I stated earlier, in which that the overall team composition will generally be more balanced, and that the flow of the game would improve a decent amount. I think from a personal level it's good because even if I did want to play my favorite class, it's not like you are restricted to only 1 or 2 of each class per team. 3 is pretty generous, and I think it's a pretty good compromise between both sides of the topic, in which a considerable amount of the team can still play one class if desired, and those who are looking for a more balanced experience won't be hindered as much. Now, while I think that class limits in casual, if enforced slightly, as an Uncle Dane server, thank you for setting a good example, would be beneficial to the overall gameplay that is casual TF2, I don't feel like the chaos would be hindered or sacrificed as much as people would think, and I feel like people would find most games to move a lot more and stalemate a lot less. But of course, at the end of the day, this is Valve casual, and I understand if Valve wanted to keep their servers relatively free of any basic rule sets. I mean, they have random crits, they have random bullet spread, and they recently even started allowing you to bot. It's insane. It's just, there's so much freedom. Anyways, moving on to my thoughts about class limits in a competitive sense. I mean, this one really kind of writes itself. Class limits in a competitive sense are pretty integral to the overall format and gameplay, and when playing a tight-knit teams where winning and completing the objective is pretty much of the utmost importance. The balance becomes a lot more delicate once you half the player count. Only having 6 people on a team really has to make teams consider which classes would be best for situations and which ones they use in more specific ones in order to ensure they have the highest chance of success in game. So I think that factor, tied with the fact that, of course, restricting the class limits for the sake of promoting fluid team composition overall creates a more fun, fast-paced, fluid, competitive environment that doesn't stalemate as often and avoids the over-reliance on certain classes in order to play effectively. I think Valve Competitive is a great example of the slippery slope that is not having a class limit and what that could cause to the overall pacing and fun factor of the game. Allowing classes to stack such as Medic, Demo, or Sniper can be problematic and really create an uneven playing experience, and players have to match or play countering classes in order to stand a chance against the other team's class stacking, just creating just a complete mess of a game that doesn't really have a lot of structure or team composition. While I think having options to play whatever class you want is important, there should never really be more of one of each class, with the exception of maybe Scout or Soldier, simply because they are generalist classes and have historically worked well even with 2 of each. But having to fight against multiple heavies, medics, or pyros really creates an environment that just doesn't feel competitive, but more almost like a half-empty casual lobby, and the structure and competitive atmosphere that exists falls apart with the unbalanced team composition. I mean, these are obviously my thoughts on the matter, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about class limits in both the casual and competitive sense. I know there have been countless videos on the subject, but I want to introduce it here. You guys always share a lot of interesting discussion down below, which I always love reading, so thank you guys. Of course, consider leaving a like if you enjoyed it, help the channel greatly. If you enjoyed this video or any of my other content, consider subbing to the channel, that way you never miss more content from me in the future. And yeah guys, this about wraps up this video. I'd like to thank you for watching, and as always, thank you, and have a good day.